Hi there. Yeah, I'm Pezzin from Canada. We're here in Montreal during the Canadian Championships. I've won this particular tournament. It's a club championships. Our club has won 7 times. And I've also won the Plino d'Oro, which is their national singles title, 5 times. And I actually won the U.S. Plino d'Oro once as well. 55 years old. I love to play bocce. I've semi-retired now, and well, let's say full-time retired from gambling and just getting out on circuit and playing more tournaments. So I'm excited about that.
Well, thanks for taking the time, Pat.
Oh.
How did you get started playing? You played bocce before you played poker, right?
Yes.
You played bocce. Your family. I know.
Yes. My dad and my uncles were bocce players, and
5 times in a row, right? World Series.
Not in a row, but they won it. But there was I'm not sure. That's what I remember. I only found one paper clipping.
5 times in a row.
Wasn't 5 times in a row. They said they won the 5. You know, now I saw that a lot of the history going back, and I only see their name once there, so I'm not really sure what the whole story was. I was just a little kid, but for sure they won it in '83 because I found that picture. And back in the day, you know, there was a lot of splitting in tournaments. They wouldn't finish, kind of like
even in the World Series.
Even in the World Series, yeah. So it just kind of like poker, when they say they voted on somebody or whatever. Even poker tournaments, they would never end. Back in the day, they would never end. There would be like 5 guys left, and they say, "Hey, you guys want to split?"
How do you feel about splitting?
I don't like splitting. Bocce tournaments or poker tournaments, I've never split anything. I like to play to win the tournament, so I don't.
That's why you came there, right?
Right. Yeah. So,
that's how I feel.
Especially bocce. There's no way I'm ever splitting a bocce tournament.
Yeah. So you're playing Volo even when your dad and your uncles were playing Rafa in the States.
Yes.
And were they also playing Volo in Ontario?
100%. Yeah.
And were they were playing Rafa in Ontario too, or they would just go to the States?
They just go to the States, play these tournaments. Yeah. There was no Rafa. There was no. That game didn't really exist. They just played brass ball.
What's older, the Chicharo Club or Rainbow Creek? Or a better question would be, what was the first Rafa facility?
So before Chicharo Club and Rainbow Creek was Toronto Bocce Fila, and which is where my dad played for, and Fama Furlani. So they were basically more northern Italians would play, and it was more brass ball than Central Italian and Southern Italians came to play the game, and it evolved into more open rules. Rafa.
Is that a regional thing in Italy?
So you'll find more brass ball, and like if you go northern Italy, you'll find a lot more brass ball than center Italy. Well, I don't actually central Italy. I don't think you'll find brass ball at all. It's all Rafa. But in the north, you'll find brass ball and Rafa.
Mm-hmm. So, Volo, when you were a kid, and then you started playing poker when you were what, like 14, right? Something like that.
Started playing pool. So
pool, right?
Yeah. So I'm a pool player. I played pool. That's where I know Daniel Negreanu when he was like 13 years old. I was a few years older than him.
For those, not to interrupt you, but for anybody who doesn't know who Daniel Negreanu is, he's one of the most winningest poker players.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Winningest? It is, right?
The most. Yeah, I don't think he has a title right now because they have such high stake events right now, so it keeps on changing all the time. But yeah, he's been a poker ambassador forever.
He's having a good year this year, I think.
Yeah. He's. But he keeps up with the times. You know, it's very hard. A lot of players just fade out. The reason I quit poker or had to go out when it went into sports betting is because the game evolves and you're competing against such great young minds, and it's hard to keep up with them. So you have to. But Daniel's done an excellent job of keeping up with the game, evolving with the game.
He's real fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody that's who we're talking about. He's one of the more well-known poker players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's actually played bocce a couple of times. I brought him out to the club a couple of times, and
at Chicharo?
The Chicharo Club, and there was a previous club that he came out to one time.
So you met him in the pool halls in Woodbridge, right?
Yes, and then Ontario, Canada, Toronto area rolled out charity casinos, which was mobile casinos. So they would open up a casino for 3 days in a convention hall or an arena, and the proceeds would go to some charity. And they introduced poker.
Do they still do that?
No, no. So now they have full casinos, but at the time there was no full casinos. So this is '94, and they just opened up, and it was limit hold'em. They would open at 12 o'clock, and they would close at 4 in the morning. So they'd be open 16 hours. And at the beginning there was such a boom that if you didn't get there at 12, you weren't getting a seat. All of us played 16 hours all the time. So me and Daniel played together for years doing that, and then eventually we started going to Vegas. He decided to stay there. I decided to come back. I had a girlfriend at the time who's my wife right now, and she was very supportive of both my poker career and my bocce career.
So she's seen it all, huh?
Yeah, she's seen it all.
So what age was that when you were spending 16 hours a day in the?
Yeah, so that would be in my 20s.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess I would have been 94. Yeah, I would have been 25 years old.
And at this point, you had already gone to Worlds for Volo, right?
Yeah, so when I was 18, so I've already stopped playing bocce for 7 years coming into this when I started playing poker.
So you played, at what age, is that when you stopped at 18?
18, yeah, it's up to 18.
After going to Worlds?
After going to the Worlds to Monaco and in France.
Why'd you stop?
Yeah, I was 18 and I was getting, teased a little bit from my friends about playing bocce. Like, what are you doing? Let's go out. Even though
you're going to Worlds, you're still.
Yeah. So I stopped.
What about poker? If poker wasn't, if poker hadn't hit the boom yet, were there also?
I wasn't playing poker. No, 18. I wasn't playing poker. I was playing pool. I didn't start playing poker until '94. So I quit playing bocce, and I guess I was born in '69, so '89.
Was it similar when you started playing poker that friends would be like, "What are you doing? Why are you playing cards?"
No.
Because there's more money involved.
Yeah, it was cool to play, gamble poker. It was a bunch of young guys, older guys. Yeah, it was great. So the great thing about the poker boom in Toronto was we all learned together at the same time. It wasn't like there was these great players.
Yeah.
Because there was no game, so we're all playing at the same time, and then whoever could pick up the game quicker would win the money, basically. So Daniel was already playing in the underground clubs. I wasn't, and he knew a little bit about the game. I love to study the games. I love to study bocce. I love to study poker, and I kind of figured it out, and it went from there. Yeah.
Do you approach, when you play bocce, is it similar approach, mostly analytical?
I try to, yes. I try to put. I feel like I do call a good game, and I feel like I make right decisions based on. I have some logic on why I make decisions, and some odds that I put to things that come from poker.
So, are you more likely? Are you more apt to? How often you play to your opponent's weaknesses rather than are you just entirely? What I've found, for example, with Paulino, a lot of guys will talk about. You look at your opponent and you might say, they're weaker short, or they're weaker long, they're weaker in the center, they're weaker near the sideboard. But what I've found from observing is, I think most of the time the best players put the Paulino in the same spot pretty much every time. They just play to their strengths rather than.
Right. So I think that's exactly right. So general approach is you play to your strength. And if the other person, if you find a really strong weakness that you can exploit, then you go after that. But if not, you should just play to your strength, especially if you're the favorite.
It has to be a pretty glaring weakness,
right?
You think?
Yeah.
What does that change if you're playing against like somebody like Jose? Are you still just playing to your strengths, or are you?
No, so yeah, so Jose would be one of the only people I don't play to my strengths. I play in the volo zone against Jose, where I don't play against in the volo zone against almost nobody.
Because it gives you
Right.
the
So I
option to
feel
hit
like this,
Paulino?
like when you're an underdog, you definitely should shorten the field, and so the longer the court, the more skill it is to play longer. So you shorten it when you're the dog, and lengthen it when you're the favorite. So that's why you see a lot of the top players in Italy. They play last line, like, or Jose, for example, he plays last line in the middle against everybody. It's like that's just saying I'm better than you and let's play.
I'm curious the skills that you learned, going both ways. The skills that you learned in bocce that helped you in poker, and then same going back the other way. So I imagine expected value is probably something that you learned to pay attention to in poker.
Yeah, expected value is something that came in poker. I think a lot of us naturally do some expected value. Like I think people know, like if we're gonna flip a coin, if I'm offering you $200, if it's tails, if you win, I pay you 200, but if you lose, you only pay me 100. Like you're gonna take that bet. You know you're getting, the more times we flip, you're gonna be making money. So people know that when it's very basic, but can they apply it to a bocce game? So there's certain situations where what is your opponent's shooting percentage, or and I guess it's not exact science because we don't know, but whatever your perception of their shooting percentage is, and your own perception of your own shooting percentage should be factored into the game calling.
It was interesting to me hearing the way that you broke it down last night based on, so if somebody's, I don't remember the numbers, if somebody's a 90% shooter, the odds of them hitting twice in a row are
81%.
81.
Right.
Then,
so like the odds of first of all, there's not that many 90% shooters.
Right.
So
there's a lot of people who would consider themselves 90% shooters.
There's a lot of people that consider themselves 90% shooters. I think Jose is close to 90% shooter in PRV. I don't think he is. I think he's like in the high 80s. But 90% is high, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in PRV, because you can't hit the wrong target. Like when you're shooting either or and you hit, are you counting as that a hit or a miss? In open, it's a hit, so you're counting it, right? So it becomes more different. Your hitting percentage goes down in PRV for sure. So then, like, if you take what are the odds of a 90% shooter? Like you said, what are the odds of a 90% shooter hitting 4 balls in a row? If you're worried about Jose hitting 4 balls in a row, what are the odds? So it's 0.9 times 0.9 times 0.9 times 0.9, so whatever, it's around 64%. So Jose is about 64. But if you take a 70% shooters, where most of the players are at, you take a 70% shooter, then their odds are less than 50% to hit. It's like 40%. It's 40% to hit 4 in a row.
So if you're not using that information actively, when are you using that information?
Just some basic time. So let's say you can shoot the Polino to make 4. If you miss, you lose 4. Right? So when should you shoot it? I guess if you're over 50%, you should shoot it, right? Do people still shoot it? I don't know. Like most people don't. But what's your percentage shooting Polino? Is it more than 50% or less than 50%? But then there's other factors that go into that too, and so it's not that simple sometimes. Where if, let's say, the other team is line 4, and if you hit Polino, you make 4, you're risking 4 to make 4, right? But if their closest ball is, let's say, 4 feet to the Polino, and you're making this point 100% of the time, if you decide to go point, are you still risking 4 for 4? And the answer is no, because your upside of shooting the Polino is only 3 points. You would make 4, but you would have made 1 anyways. So your upside is only 3 points. And by missing a Polino, not only did you lose 4, but you lost the 1 that you would have made. So now you're risking 5. So your reward's 3 and your risk is 5. So now if you're a 50% shooter, you should not be shooting. So now you have to be even 60%. 60% I think is worth like 0.8 of a point. So making a point is worth 1, so you should still take the 1. But now
So you'd have to be closer to 70%.
Yeah, if you're 70% Plino shooter, then you should take it. So 70% Plino shooter, for example, 70. So let's say this scenario comes up 10 times. 7 times 4 is 28 points you're making, but you're missing 3 times 4 is 12. So 28 minus 12 is 16. So divided by 10, you get 1.6 value by shooting Plino.
So there's very few people that should be shooting Paulino in that scenario.
Depends, but let's say now the balls aren't 4 feet away. Let's say first point is only a foot, second point is only 2 feet, or like let's say they have 3 balls within 2 feet of the Plino.
Mm-hmm.
Now by going point, you might leave 3 points. Like maybe 50% you're gonna leave 3 points on the ground. So now there's no reason you shouldn't be shooting a Plino. Now you can even shoot the Plino at 30% if you're a 30% shooter, because those other balls are closer. So not every scenario is the same. It depends on how easy it is to make that point as well. And also the game score, the score matters too. It's not always getting the right price matters, because sometimes it's your tournament life. Like if it's your tournament life, that should be worth something too.
When you came back to Butch, we'll go eat lunch soon, but
yeah.
When you came back, I remember talking to you before. You said your first year back, you went something like 3-28 in the
yeah.
OBA.
So playing PRV, which was
What age was this when you were 30?
Yeah, so I was 32. I joined over. So I came back. I was 30, and I started playing in my dad's club. They kind of left the OBA at the time because
What club was that?
Toronto Bocce Fila.
Yeah.
So a lot of people ask, how did the Toronto 777 name come up? So we tried to open Toronto Bocce Club, but we couldn't because the Toronto Bocce Fila, which Bocce Fila is a bocce club in Italian, name was already registered with the government. So they said you have to put some numbers on it, and then we just threw 3 7s on it to register it, and that's how the gambling kind of side of it and the Lux factor 777 is kind of like slot machines, whatever. So that's how we came up with that name. So anyways, they didn't want to join OBA anymore, so I decided to change clubs at the time. I think I joined Concord Bocce Club at the time, and to join the OBA, I played my first singles. They had 40 players playing. It was more than that. I guess there was, because we had 2 divisions of 31, 30. Yeah, so I guess there was like 62 people playing in it, and my group had 31 players in it. And we had to play everybody, so the season would be a long season. It would start in October. It was like the whole basketball season or hockey season. Start in October, finish in May, and you just play weekly 31 games. And I got beat up. I won 3 games out of 31. And but towards the end of the season, I started getting close. You have to learn how to win, right? So I'd be there, but you just couldn't finish off the games. It's not, and then. The next year, I ended up 3rd in the leaderboard. So that was a big learning curve that summer that I had to go off to get ready for the next season. I knew I was kind of ready, but then it didn't. It took a while to get to the top. You can move up by practicing. You can move up, and then it's just hard to knock whoever's on top at the time off. Yeah. So
was there like a breakthrough season for you, or something that was there a crux, something that what's the word?
So I can say I don't know. In 2012, I was a Team Poker Pro for 2010 and 2011. So that was a sponsored. PokerStars was an online poker site, and I would wear their patch and represent them in tournaments, and they'd pay for some buy-ins and some other perks. I would write some poker articles, and then there was this big Black Friday event in the States where online gambling was illegal. So then all the sponsorships went away, so you wouldn't see poker on TV as much anymore, because those companies, Full Tilt Poker, PokerStars, Ultimate Bet, whatever, they couldn't have U.S. customers anymore, and that was basically 90% of their demographics. So all the sponsorship deals went away. So now I lost that in 2012, and I started playing more bocce. And so I hurt my wrist. I couldn't shoot backhand anymore. Ironically, I used to shoot backhand, and I couldn't shoot backhand anymore. and I had to shoot overhand, and that's when I started winning single tournaments. So before that, I really didn't win single tournaments. I would want the Canadian Championships here, the team events, but I wasn't really a singles player. I had a couple thirds and seconds in the Plino Lottos, but I never won it. And then 2012, I won my first one, and that was the changing point. That was a real big light bulb where I was really closed-minded to overhand shooters. And probably your big audience here, like, fuck, underhand shooting is the only way to go, and I agree with that on open rules.
Underhand meaning backhand?
Yeah, sticking backhand.
Sottomano?
Yeah, backhand, sticking ball, sottomano, the stop shot, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's the most exciting thing in open rule bocce for sure. Even in PRV, it's exciting to see, right? But it's not the best way to play the game if you're evenly. Now, Jose can get away with it because he's so much better than everybody. But when he plays with the top players from Italy, it doesn't work shooting backhand. So he's incorporated this overhand shot to protecting the back ball because you just need to do it. You just need to protect the back wall, be able to shoot Polinos. Playing singles, shooting backhand is very, it takes more effort. So you get more tired in tournaments. You have to play 7-8 games to shoot backhand versus shooting overhand. You're just following through. It's kind of like your pointing style as well. So nothing really changes. Shooting Polinos, shoot. So it's all the same motion, and it's less hard on your knees and stuff like that. Because when you're shooting backhand, you kind of stop when you shoot. So there's a lot more pressure on your knees on these concrete courts with rubber on top.
You got to have both, even in open, right? But especially these days. Imagine that the level of talent has, or the level of competition has. Proudest moment in bocce for you?
Winning my first Plino Lotto for sure. Winning my first Plino Lotto was my first national singles championship.
What year was that?
2012. Yeah. Was definitely my most proudest moment. Most exciting moment was probably, so I won in Wycliffe in 2006 with Felice Construction, me a guy from Toronto, and Felice and Natale. But then winning it with Jose in 2013, I think we got Jose, Jason, myself, and another guy from Toronto, Pat Concordio. That was definitely one of the highlights. Bocce started already increasing excitement, so that was I think one of my most memorable tournaments as well. I guess one of the other proudest moments is obviously beating Jose. So, which I had Jose had beaten me like 12 times in PRV, and I was so excited because we're going to go play in Windsor for this North America, Mike Grasser, North America US Plino Lotto. It was in Windsor, Ontario, just across the border of Michigan there, Detroit. And I was telling people in Toronto, oh man, I know what I'm going to do. I got the plan to beat Jose. I was like studying, what am I going to do? This guy kills me every time. And I thought I had the plan, but I go up. So, and that's the first time I decided, because I used to shoot Plino. I used to play normal, play to my strengths, and it wouldn't work. And I said, okay, I'm going to try this new thing. I played Volo Zone against Jose. And I was just explaining to people, they were just, nodding their heads, whatever. I'm going to play it in the Volo Zone. I'm going to let him shoot 3 balls, and I'm going to shoot the Plino on the 4th ball. And no, the strategy at the time was always shoot Plino with 2 balls left, because what if you miss the first one? Well, right? So like if you're a 70% Plino shooter in the Volo Zone, how much does it increase your percentages of hitting the Plino if you use 2 balls versus 1 ball? And was that worth it? So if I'm going to hit the Plino, let's say, just over the right, I had to hit the Plino 70% of the time for this to work against Jose. So just to play over in the Volo Zone to hit the Plino 7 out of 10 times, the 3 times I miss it on the 3rd ball, because if I hit it 7 out of 10, if I miss it 3 out of 10, what's the value of having another ball behind? Now, those 3 shots, if you're hitting 70% of those 3 shots, so you're down to, you get another 2, almost 2. So you're hitting it by shooting with 2 balls. You're likely to hit it 90% of the time, one of the 2 balls. But if you shoot it with 1 ball, you're 70%. But the key was that Jose only had 1 ball because he was just too strong with 2 balls left. So that was the plan, and it kind of worked. So that day I didn't miss any Polinos. Every time he would stick 3 balls with Volo, I would shoot Polino, bring it down, and he would play a little. He'd play at the back wall, but he would leave me 2 or he'd leave me 3 because it was so hard to be aggressive with when I'm lying 4 that he couldn't burn the ball or anything. So, but with 2 balls, he was just too tough to beat at the back wall. So whatever, I won, and I won the U.S. Polino Lotto because of that. And that definitely was my proudest moment because I went there with a game plan and I executed it. With that said, because this is going to come across cocky, of course, I've played Jose, I guess, 22 times now and 23 times because we played 3 times at the qualifier. I beat him twice. He's killed me 18 times.
3 times. You beat him
now,
3 times.
And now I beat him at the qualifier as well. So at the qualifier is 8 frames, a lot different.
Beautiful. Well, we got to go get some lunch, and you got to get back on the court. So
yes,
thank you, Pat. Always appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Always, thanks for having me, Mike.
Thanks.